Okay. You guys ready to start?
I have airplane mode my phone. Oh, I sound very sick right now.
It's because you're an ill individual.
I know.
No, Yeston. We do not clink with water here. Clink.
Oh, I didn't. There we go.
That was unsatisfying.
We need like glasses.
Ooh, that is not good.
It's not awesome, but it'll do the job.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not disappointed that there's only one bottle, but I mean, there is only one bottle.
Ooh, this is what happens when Arturo picks out wine.
Okay, like, Yeston went to Liberty Creek. I was like, let's get a knockoff of Liberty Creek. Arrow Creek it is.
Yeah, not the same. I'm sorry. Arrow Creek, very disappointed.
There's Game of Thrones spoilers here.
Okay. I think, if you will allow me, Arturo, I'm going to
taking over.
Put my opinion right on the table. This show is dead to me. Anyone who thinks it's going to turn around in the next 2 episodes, they're just sucking their own wang. I don't know what they're thinking. I don't understand it anymore.
Wait, did we start? No. I'm not paying attention.
Oh yeah, Sean's still on his phone.
Okay,
let's not clip, fellas.
Sorry about that.
That was more me.
Okay, I've been containing a lot in since I first watched it. I'm excited to
release. You've been very quiet recently, yeah.
He was memeing. Although I didn't think you were containing a lot. You were sending a lot of messages through the
That's true as well.
Messenger.
Oh, I've just had a lot of free time lately.
Aren't you lucky? No, but just if we're going to do our usual yay or nay thing, I'm a full nay, like 0%.
I'm a nay as well.
I am a full 100% yes. I think that we are finally back to Game of Thrones that we used to have, like where we would be excited for the action stuff that was happening.
Shawn,
okay,
I'm disagreeing really hard with you.
All right, good. It means we have things to talk about. That's why I said we needed wine.
Oh my gosh! All right.
Okay, well, where do we start? Just general overview of the show of the episode.
Yeah, we'll go through event by event and we see where our differences lie.
Okay,
that's what I was touching up on before. I was just reminding.
He's getting his arguments.
Scene by scene.
Yeah, he's getting his arguments settled so he can effectively criticize us.
No, I'm just looking at the scene by scene. Like,
okay, so before we go scene by scene, I want to touch a little bit on the backlash from the long night.
Oh, it has been harsh.
The long night.
Have you read any backlash, Shawn? I feel like you don't.
I have read some.
Because I know you said you kind of stay away from all the.
By the long night, what do you mean?
Episode 3.
Episode 3 in the series.
The episode.
Yes.
Okay.
The season 8, episode 3.
I mean, we discussed this, didn't we? I mean, I know about the backlash. I think some of the backlash is very, very valid. Some of the points, like there's always good criticism, but I think a lot of it is bandwagon criticism, or people looking at things in ways that either different from the way that George R.R. Martin intended, or different from the way that the directors and the artists of the show itself intended.
For me personally, so in our group chat, Yeston shared the unbridled rage against this episode. But who was it? Who was the YouTuber?
The YouTuber is Mahler. I think it's Mahler.
Wow.
I thought it was Mauler. Either way, we'll link it again. Yeah. And anyway, and I watched the whole thing. I was in Chicago when I was watching it. Just gonna throw that in there. And I was like, am I really gonna watch a 37-minute video? And I started watching it, and I could not put it down. It made some very valid points, like when you watch something. And maybe you don't know exactly how you feel. Yeah, you can't put it in words. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of the case for me when watching this episode. And he did a very good job of explaining these things, like these arguments that were kind of on the tip of my tongue. A lot of the things that he said, I found myself agreeing more after I watched this this episode 4 of season 8, because I feel like after episode 3, I was kind of holding out hope, like maybe there's a way to salvage it. But after episode 4, I don't feel that way anymore. And what he said just resonates way more with me. And I wanted to talk about the backlash of episode 3, season 8, episode 3, because after that video specifically came out a couple of days after we released, or maybe not after, but definitely after we recorded this. Yeah. Because we always record the day after.
Yeah.
Anyway, did you watch that video?
I watched some of it. I wasn't able to watch all of it, but there were a few points that I agreed with. But overall, I mean, I don't know.
Just because I feel that because the backlash from the long night has been just developing more and more as time goes on. That's why I wanted to bring it up. Anyway, Yestin, did you have anything to add about this?
Yeah, I just with what he's saying, like, I do think that this is something that has built up over time, and I kind of get what you mean in that some of it does feel like sort of bandwagoning, where people are grasping onto arguments and then making a stronger point later, maybe that they didn't originally think, but now they see, oh, everyone else is thinking this. But I mean, like, most of the points I do agree with. And I think he's right in that this has grown stronger over time, and especially with the release of episode 4. I mean, people are not happy. And to me, and I know that there are circumstances that are built up against this. You know, this has been a super long running project for all of those involved, and it's very taxing. But to me, I just feel like this is a waste of such good potential. You've built up so many cool characters and this interesting world within this sort of cinematic universe, for lack of a better term, and now it's just sort of being wasted, is how I feel. That is unfortunate, and I think that's why people are so angry.
See, the question I have to ask, and it's a very, very broad question, and I imagine it's a very different reason for everybody who has the opinion, but similar different reasons, obviously. Mm-hmm. Why do you think it's bad or being ruined?
That video did a hell of a job explaining why.
The video goes into a lot of, like, well, first of all, something that it continuously attacks is the presence of plot armor. The fact that they just continuously play with the audience's expectations by cutting away from character deaths. You'll see a character just surrounded in a situation that looks like there's no way that they could escape this, but then they do. You know, this happens with Sam, for example, quite a bit, but it happens with all the characters, including John and Danny and Jorah. People were criticizing the fact that it didn't feel like an effective conclusion of the Night King's timeline to be killed by Arya, regardless of Arya's ability to do this. Because, you know, people were, of course, saying, oh, well, you know, you're just mad that it's a girl that killed him or something like that. But the argument was more that, well, this is the Night King's timeline is intertwined with Jon, and to have him have absolutely no real impact on the nature of his demise feels very unsatisfying.
Just in the battle itself, because of course he had an impact on the nature of his demise by bringing everybody together.
Yeah,
but just like the final killing blow.
Yeah.
I think is what the argument is.
I'm sorry. I thought we were watching Game of Thrones. When have they ever cared what has been satisfying for the audience? They care about, well, they've always cared about what would the characters realistically do based on their motives and their interactions.
But I feel like,
and I mean, there has been a few lapses, especially hiccups when they adapt things that are different from the books. But I think for the most part, they've done a pretty decent job at continuously doing what these characters would be doing, regardless of whether or not it's what would be interesting, or what would be right, or what we'd want to root for, or what we'd want to see.
This is what I wanted since day one.
Well, so
this is, and I think this is what George R.R. Martin wanted. Like, he wanted like shit to be talked about like this because it was so divisive. Okay, but I think it's the realism, regardless of, I guess, intentions or desires of the reader that kind of makes it. It's kind of like setting the seeds and kind of watching. You get to watch a It's like kind of watching an ant farm. You kind of just see it happen in front of you. You don't get to like determine the outcome necessarily. I mean, in an ant farm, you could like pour water down there and kill everybody. But I mean, you could do the same with the
That's
book.
what the
or
long
your
night was
computer.
supposed to be.
No, I agree with this idea of sort of having a set of characters within an environment and just allowing them to interact with each other as they see fit and allowing the story to evolve that way. But I think that for one thing, it has to be led in a certain direction. So for example, Ned Stark dies at the end of season 1, and that was unexpected, but I still think it was satisfying. What would not have been satisfying, to sort of exaggerate the argument, would be if he got like run over by a carriage suddenly. Like he's in the middle of all this and he just gets hit by something that had nothing to do with him. That would not be satisfying. He still would have died, right? The consequences would have been slightly different. But in that way, yes, the characters are still interacting the way they are, but the world is not just allowed to run rampant. There's still sort of plot interactions that are planned out.
Yeah, but where does that happen? Like,
I think it happened with Arya and the Night King. Arya had nothing to do with the Night King, and it feels weird to have her just come in suddenly and in this huge plot line. And also I think, it doesn't help that the episode around it has a lot of problems of its own. But I think that, and obviously like comparing Arya to a carriage hitting Ned is an exaggeration. But I do think that is the feeling that people are getting, that this supreme entity that has been such a threat built up over time is just offed by this character that had nothing to do with him. And a character which, by the way, I think is being really mistreated, especially when you think of 2, 3, and 4, these episodes. The way that she acts seems very inconsistent to me. And
Talking about Arya.
Yes. And so that's, I think, the effect that people are having. And as far as characters like being allowed to make their own decisions, I think that has been gone for a long time. And I think the worst offense was when they decided to go north of the wall to bring a White Walker down to Cersei. The plan for that, especially Tyrion's role in it, to me did not fit with what any of the characters would have agreed to do in that situation. Now, you can, of course, claim that, well, you don't know exactly what the characters are thinking, but based off of their previous interactions, I just don't think that's something that any of them would have decided to do. I think they just wanted to get the Night King a dragon because it would be cool. And I think that is what the show has devolved into now. They envision a bunch of cool scenes like the Dothraki getting slowly killed off. Yeah, and that's a cool scene, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. Or Arya just killing the Night King with a single blow, which was foreshadowed, when she was fighting Bran and stuff. That is a cool scene, but I don't think it fits well into the storyline. And that's what it feels like now, a bunch of cool scene ideas that don't really mesh well together. And are the way that they have actually evolved is not thought of. I feel like they are very much doing the opposite of what was done previously, where they're thinking of plot points and then trying to maneuver a way for the characters to get to those plot points.
I mean, I don't know what else to say other than I completely disagree. But
I think just to kind of summarize that point, because Yeston can ramble, not a bad thing, but it's just like it used to be that characters' decisions would lead to events, and now events are predetermined and their actions are made so that it gets to that point. That's what he's saying. Yeah.
I can 100. Okay, that point. Sorry, I know.
No, I'm sorry. I talked for a long time.
I do that too sometimes, and we can all get lost in our points. But I would agree with that, and I think that sheerly because of the way that the nature of the show, in the fact that they don't have the ending to adapt, they have to adapt the ending from. I'm guessing like a very long conversation with George R. Martin that they had a couple years back, like when they realized they're going to very quickly surpass the books.
If anyone is to blame, I think, for any unhappiness that fans are feeling, I think it's George R. R. Martin, honestly, because like he is very incompetent at finishing a story.
I mean, as someone who also has to output art or creative mediums, I would give him mercy.
And
you think so? In Okay.
I think he's playing. I think essentially what he's doing is he's trying to play a very, 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 very large game of chess with a lot of pieces. And I can imagine where and why and the way that he has done it so thoroughly previously. I can see why it's taking so much time, as unfortunate as it is. And like, we all want him to like hurry up and finish, but some people take a long time to work.
And like I was saying earlier, like I've seen a lot of people just putting down the writers, whatever their names are. Everyone calls them D&D.
Yeah,
David Benioff and Weisman or something.
DB Weiss or something.
Yeah. And I agree. Like, I don't think that's fair because Martin does have all of this time to construct this super complicated plot line, and they are under a lot of pressure to finish a very high budget show in a fairly limited amount of time. So I understand that there are circumstances, but I do think that there are some just very obvious things, some of which we'll get into in this episode specifically, that I just think could have been done so much better, and seemingly obviously better. And again, to me, I do feel like it is now a collection of very cool scenes that do not mesh together well or don't make a lot of sense.
Okay, well, I think this is a good time to get into it kind of scene by scene. Okay, so the opening scene was the morning scene. It was the morning of mourning, as we shall henceforth call it.
All right, sure, whatever.
Fine. And there, I mean, you saw characters like Sansa mourning over Theon.
Jorah gets another kiss.
Yeah, like a friend kiss.
Yeah. Glad you died for me. Thanks.
The only thing that seemed a little bit out of place for me was John, like looking over Lyanna. That's it.
Someone's got to do it.
I guess
Yeah.
so, but it felt forced to me.
She doesn't
You know?
really have any next of kin.
She was the next of kin. It just felt a little bit forced to me. And again, it was like another send-off to her, but
Okay, I'm sorry. I know I'm going to be a downer this episode, but just a small thing is that in the beginning of season 1, they make a big deal about when you'll know what I'm talking about, when Jorah fights a Dothraki, a member of the Dothraki, and he tries to slash at him, and his like blade gets stuck in Jorah's armor. Armor doesn't mean anything anymore. Jorah's wearing armor. He's wearing like plate armor, and he gets stabbed by one of the White Walkers, like one of the ice zombies, not the main guys. And that's how he dies. And that is another thing that almost feels sort of unsatisfying.
Well, they're different types of weapons. The thing he got killed by was a sword, which was meant to stab. The thing that the Dothraki was using was an Iraq, which is kind of a hook. So essentially he kind of just like hooked him, and then like imagine if you'd stuck like a fish hook or whatever into like
a pole,
like a soda can,
Yeah.
like it'd be stuck. So like he just easily won because of the nature of that fight. It's just like the different weapon. That's kind of a minor point.
And I understand that, but like this is something that feels inconsistent to me. And one of the other inconsistent things is the strength of the walkers, because at one point you have them literally bursting out of stone when they're freshly risen. Now you could make an argument that, well, they lose strength as time goes on, and maybe that's the case, you know, that's sort of unclear. But at some points they're like blocked by a wooden door, at some points they're bursting through stone, at some points they're stabbing through plate armor. I understand it's a different weapon type, but this is another thing that sort of feels inconsistent.
I'll agree with that, because that was a little weird, because whatever doors they have, like, I mean, I'm no I guess chemist or whatever you would be, but I don't know how thick like a wooden door would have to be that like you'd cover the fucking entrance to the crypts would be, versus like how thin or thick those stone crypts were. Like that's a little...
Yeah. Or even maybe a more obvious example would be how John closed the gate behind him as he was running to go to catch up to the Night King in episode 3. He's just like running and dodging dragonfire. And then a bunch of White Walkers or Whites are chasing him, and he just like stops them by closing like a metal gate. That's it. And I think that goes in hand with what you guys are talking about as far as like what are exactly the boundaries of their strength.
The biggest issue there is like overhyping in like the film I guess like the directing, or I don't know, the shooting, I guess, of the scene.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, but especially when you have like another horde of whites just bursting through the Unsullied earlier, it feels like they established that this is a tremendously powerful force, but then it's made super inconsistent later. I'm sorry. Another problem with that is like the Dragonfire. Viserion's Dragonfire is just super inconsistent. Why can John just...
All right, that was last
hide?
episode.
I know, but I'm just...
let's
The power crawl is just... Ugh.
In the morning of morning, we see Ghost.
Yes,
and
we
he is
do.
wounded. And he's the good boy.
He's
love
a very good boy.
Ghost.
He didn't get pet.
No, I saw those memes too. I really like him. I wish that he would just be with John all the time. I was kind of sad that he was wounded, but at the same time, it's kind of badass.
My problem with Ghost is that, obviously this is a CGI budget constraint. At least I'm assuming it is. But they spend I just feel like there's wasted dragon CGI going on, and I feel like some of that could have been devoted to at least giving Ghost like a proper send-off. I realize that, there's monetary things to be considered, but I feel like there are wasted dragon scenes, and they could have been, slightly managed better.
Yeah.
But I do think the act of John giving up Ghost is a very Jon Snow or Jon Stark thing to do.
Yeah.
Do you think that...
Not John Targaryen.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you think that represents him like abandoning the Starks?
I don't think so, but that could be very well. Maybe that's him abandoning the wildlings.
Well,
because the
left.
wildlings do leave as well, so maybe that's kind of like abandoning. He's kind of putting that like time that he spent north of the wall, he's putting that behind him, possibly.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it was his death that released him from the Night's Watch, and presumably that's all just behind him now.
Yeah, now that the Night's Watch, they're kind of out of jobs now, I think. What do they do with all their prisoners after this now?
They don't have many prisoners.
Yeah.
Or they shouldn't. We'll get into it. Okay, then also we get to see Horny Gendry and the Hound.
Oh, yeah. Horny Gendry.
It is all, again, about dicks,
Yeah.
right?
They're all drinking, and Gendry wants to know where Arya is for some reason.
Yeah.
Don't know why.
But he gets more than a rise in blood, shall we say. He gets a rise of status.
Yeah,
Nobody else is
okay.
gonna laugh at me?
Now, move on.
All right.
That could have been done better, but
All right. Now, see, I didn't want to talk about this because
I kind of felt this was kind of like pretty easily seen. I don't know if it was foreshadowed, but I think this move was.
it was a good move.
I think it was a good move, yeah, and I think it was one that was kind of obvious too.
Mm-hmm. But I thought that him getting granted lordship and being legitimized was a hint at political games that were going to be played somehow, in this episode, because we kind of mentioned that last time we chatted. But that was the only thing of that I saw. I thought it was cool. I was like, man, this reminds me of old Game of Thrones. But after that, it felt a little like the rest of the episode felt a little bit rushed.
Oh, there are parts that I liked.
But I did like this.
Yeah.
And it felt like we're going back to it.
Now, this is sort of jumping ahead, but I think Sansa recognizes that at this point Daenerys is sort of setting things into motion with upgrading Gendry, because now she has a potential ally, and I think Sansa's recognizing that and sort of switching into Littlefinger mode, which I think she kind of does later in the episode. We'll get into that. This is also where we have the Starbucks cup.
Yeah,
We're gonna talk about that.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, what is there to talk about? It's a good meme.
It's really funny.
it's ubiquitous. Starbucks is all over the place.
Even in Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah. I think they should come out with a special cup.
Yeah, they should.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that would be great. I would go to Starbucks more often than I do now, and I go there like every day. All right. I wanted to ask, why is Clegane celibate? We don't have to get into this too much, but I'm just curious. Is he just like...
That is literally something I've never thought of.
Yeah, same.
Let's move on.
I don't think he's like outrightly celibate. At least if he is, I don't think he is in the books. There's times in the books where he'd hinted and like he said, "Oh, I could have like taken you or like raped you there." But like I don't think it ever shows him or in the books ever talks about him having sex or not.
Yeah, I was just wondering because I mean his attitude is clearly like not gonna do this.
Yeah, and like of all the rough characters, you'd expect him to be like at least occasionally going around and like getting his dick wet, you know.
You don't think so?
He's a very lonely person.
Well,
I see why.
he just wants to stay that way.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean I guess that answers.
He's
that.
not a happy man, Arturo.
Misery begets misery.
Exactly. I do like how proud he looks of Arya when Daenerys toasts her.
And of Sansa. He's proud of Sansa too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice. He just wants everyone to be more Clegane-like.
That was good dialogue between Sansa and Clegane.
I liked it.
I enjoyed that part.
Although I gotta say, after like episode 2, I feel like anytime there's like one-on-one conversations, I don't know like if like the next scene's gonna be a sex scene or something, or like they're gonna like suddenly kill him. Because like
so
the way
too.
I don't know if it was like the way they've been shooting the indoor scenes, but like the way they've been shooting them almost like kind of has them making people look scarier. I don't know,
Scarier or
People
I
look
guess more intense.
Okay.
People look
Intense is a good word.
scarier in the north.
It's just more
I think because of the
gloomy.
lighting. I don't know.
Maybe.
Well,
Well, I'll talk about this later, but there is something that I wanted to talk about the lighting in this episode.
I was gonna say that when Sansa goes to talk to Clegane and she puts her hand on his hand, I thought, are they really gonna go there? Like, are they gonna have them
No.
have sex?
Yeah.
But I thought
you know
that-
what? Yeah, exactly.
I thought that about Jamie and Brienne, but they went there.
I know.
That was obvious. That was pretty obvious.
See,
it was gonna happen.
I kind of expected it. I just didn't want it to happen.
I'm kind of on that boat too. I hate that I'm agreeing with Justin because on the mainline episodes we're always disagreeing. And anyway, just saying.
Oh yeah. What do we even call that couple? Jamie, Brienne.
Bramey.
Bramy. Bramy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was not rooting for that. I wasn't particularly rooting for Tormund and Brienne because
That would not have made sense.
No.
But I wanted it to not. I didn't want anything because just I mean obviously the love triangle is humorous, but I mean we can't just keep having these like memes because eventually memes have to end.
And Jamie totally cock blocked him when he gets up. Jamie literally just steps right in front of him.
Yeah.
That was a power move.
Tormund just accepts it.
Well, Tormund
He's
has
like-
his northern girls.
He's
Yeah.
a big teddy bear, Tormund.
And then you have Pod negotiating a threesome in the background.
Pod the tripod.
Yeah. So then Gendry proposes is the next scene, and he gets rejected.
Like all good Baratheon men do. From Stark women.
Oh, that's so sad. But then we had the callback to the "That's not me"
Yeah.
Which was
the third or fourth time, I think.
that she says that.
Yeah. Or
Ever?
it's been called back too.
Then shortly after we have what we just talked about. Jamie and Brienne have a sex scene, and I think it's weird. Though I'm glad they didn't show like Brienne's lady bits. I think that would have been too much.
Tyrion wanted to know, though.
I know. Then I mean, it's just like from there we get to another sort of sexual tension. What's up?
I was gonna say, did we want to talk about the weird scene with Daenerys at the feast?
Where
No.
she's recognizing that the people see Jon as a rightful king.
That and yeah, like the part after where it, like the camera goes all a little bit scary and like zooms in on her.
I think it's a little after.
There was
actually.
that was
Was it?
before the sex scene, I think.
Okay.
I think
go
that's I think that's a little bit of foreshadowing. I think that eventually I think I've made this prediction before, but I think that before the show has ended, Daenerys will die by someone like
Jon.
probably.
Doing what?
And I think that Azor Eye or the prophecy maybe doesn't necessarily mean the long night, or it doesn't mean like bring balance in terms of like the White Walkers. Maybe it's something else.
You sound like a Song of Ice and Fire subreddit who's still clinging to the Azor Ahai theories.
Jon will stab Daenerys in the back at the Iron Throne.
Oh, not in the back. I think he'll do it in the front. It'd be too unstarkly for him to do it. He's still starkly enough to look her in the face while he stabs her.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Starkly.
I just don't see it happening. I don't see a situation.
I mean, they're definitely building to that, especially with Varys and Tyrion.
Yeah, we'll get to that later. But
Okay.
that was all I wanted to point out. All right. After the sex scene.
Well, there's like an almost sex scene after that with Jon and Dany.
Oh yeah,
Where it's like incest is okay, sort of.
until he remembers it.
Dany was okay with it.
I know, right? Like that's how she probably thought, I'm Targaryen.
She's like she's used to the idea of Targaryens like their cousins.
Not siblings.
Well, I mean siblings too, but like cousins, that just means it's like it's
More genetic
less.
diversity.
Yeah, more technically.
Yeah, a little bit
I mean,
more.
as more as you could get.
Then it's the war planning room, which I'm getting a little sick of these war planning meetings.
I think that'll be the last one.
They don't mean anything.
No, yeah, that's exactly why.
I think they're just meant to show you that hey, our forces aren't doing very well.
They're doing way better than I thought they would have, though, because they said that half of everyone is gone, and like half of the NCL lead, I thought like all of them. Were totally gone.
You just see all of them just like. Well, to be fair, you did see like a few run back afterwards because you saw Jorah, his horse, come back like with him on it before, like after all the lights went off.
Right.
So it's possible that some, but I wouldn't imagine like that many. It looked like most of them died, if not.
I think that's part of the criticism too, with the inconsistency of things. Just try to keep things
I think
streamlined.
I think the biggest issue that this show has is filming things that look cool when it's cool in the moment, but the story then like when it's story time, they go back to realistic time.
That is literally what I said at the beginning, and you were like, "Nope, nope."
No, you were saying. To me, it sounded like you were saying a lot different things. It sounded like you were
There was
saying
stuff
that
on top of that, but that was a big part of it.
My complaint is not with the story direction. My complaint is with the
visuals
the story,
compared to the actual storyline.
the adaptation, because it is awesome. Like you gotta have to have like awesome stuff, but like you gotta know when to keep it realistic.
Yeah, as far as the logistics of things, realistic logistics. You like my morning and realistic logistics?
No.
Yeah.
Go on.
The second one was better, but I mean, like I think it's realistic that like the Night King, like okay, he realizes that there's probably somebody prophesized to kill me. It probably looks like it's Jon, so I'm just not even gonna deal with him. I'm just gonna raise some undead to stop him. That's cool and fine, but like showing Jon being swarmed by what looks to be like an unconquerable force, and then like a few minutes later, a scene showing him like slowly getting done with the rest of them. Like
He did the Zelda swordsman.
Yeah.
I do like that Sansa is telling Dany, like, you need to let your people recover.
Mm-hmm.
And Dany's like, no. And then immediately.
Hey.
Well,
I'm going to rage about that.
Oh, okay.
Give me a second to get there, okay? Okay, so, them saying that half of everyone is gone. Damn.
Sorry.
Are half your burps gone?
No, that's probably not even an eighth.
Okay. So half of everyone is gone, and I thought, really? Like, they just wanted to even out their armies, make it more of a fair battle between Cersei and Daenerys.
In the end, all the Night King did was, like, even Cersei and Dany out.
Yeah, that was like, 8 seasons led up to... Oh, whatever. I'm done with that. Which I thought was too convenient and perhaps bad writing. Shawn, have you had too much wine, Shawn? You were biting the mic stand.
This is unbalanced. I'm going to push it up a little.
Okay.
It needs to be balanced.
Bring balance
to
the force.
The way to do that...
There you go.
D&D is writing the next 3 Star Wars. Forget it. Again. Then we get a little mention of the Prince of Dorne.
Yeah.
Which is they just kind of gloss over.
I feel like they're just addressing open plot threads. Like even with Gendry, that was sort of a thing where people were wondering, like, what is going on over there? And they said, that's what's going on. We'll fix it. Same thing with Dorne. They just want to say, it still exists. It's still happening, but we're not going to show it.
kind of like that's what Bronn was kind of in there. He was saying, well, Highgarden exists still, that's an open castle, and so is River Run, that's an open castle now that the Freys are dead.
There's a lot of like dead families.
Oh yeah, like that's why Daenerys was calling it, she was right calling it the last war, because like half of everybody's dead.
There's only soldiers
Everybody
now.
everywhere is dying.
I think that in the war meetings, because we do go back to the war meetings, Tyrion and Jon are thinking too simply, like in their little plans. Oh, we're just going to do this. We're going to do this. Oh, yeah, they're going to meet us in the open field. We'll just beat them there. I think that that's kind of stupid. And we don't have to criticize like the details of them planning this last war. But it's like, you would think that by now they realize that things don't work out that way. That things never work out as simply as they're making it seem. And I just miss the days of Whispering Woods when there was strategy.
I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking back to it, and I would have to look into it, but I don't know if the actual battle strategies that were depicted by the show were ever that complicated. But there was time put in that the way that they were shown to the audience was never that detailed. But there was more time put into the way that the characters were developing them. And so I do feel like that gave it a better sense of sort of strategic feeling. And that doesn't really happen anymore.
I believe that that's due to a lack of, or like the pacing has changed, and I think that's just due to like you only have so much time to film all this.
Yeah,
I mean, in a perfect world, we'd have like an infinity budget Game of Thrones where you can adapt every great thing that
Right.
George R. R. Martin did to screen. But
yeah, that would be fantastic. But I just meant like I really appreciated the Whispering Woods battle because there was strategy to that. It reminded me of Braveheart when Braveheart is full of a bunch of really cool battle tactics and whatever. And I just missed those days is all I wanted to say. Then we go to Dany versus Sansa again, which is, yes, and you mentioned this, where Dany was and Sansa were kind of going back and forth. And when you said, that Sansa's saying that the troops need to rest and stuff, and along with Jon's simple battle strategies, I thought that Dany's lack of consideration toward her troops was kind of a fault. It was kind of messy.
Yeah.
Like, why?
Like I said, they are making her into a villain.
Into a
at this
mad
point.
queen. Do you guys think that's what's going to happen with her? She's going to be a mad Targaryen?
I think a little bit, yeah. But I think that these faults that these characters have, that we're seeing them like, why are you doing this? Why are we like witnessing this? These character flaws have been with them from the beginning. It's just that now they're finally becoming their undoing, or they're doing, or it's just who they really are. They're not good or evil. They just are.
As we mentioned, Dany's flaw of being kind of rash and unbending, shall we say. I think Jon's flaw is being a little too trusting.
Yeah.
Ned kept a secret his whole life. And just, I saw a comment saying, Jon doesn't know how to strategically withhold information.
Yeah.
And that's very true.
Jon does not know how to play the game.
Oh, no, which is, I guess...
And, like, he knows less than Ned did, and Ned was pretty bad.
Yeah, he died for it.
So did Jon.
That's true.
Ned didn't get a second chance. That's the only difference.
I would have been down with an undead Ned.
Yeah, dead Ned.
At the point of Dany versus Sansa, I found myself rooting for Sansa because she was thinking more clearly. That actually changed later in the episode. I was not rooting for Sansa anymore.
Oh, yeah.
We'll get there.
I can see why, yeah.
Then, within that same scene, they say how Sir Jaime's going to stay at Winterfell as a guest of Lady Sansa.
Still keep his dick wet.
Oh, yeah. And Sansa gave... I don't know if you guys caught this, but Sansa gave Brienne this look. Like, I got you, girl.
Yeah. I appreciated that.
That was cool. And Brienne was just like looking down like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask, why don't Arya and Sansa trust Dany?
They're foreigners. Well, she's a foreigner to them with foreign armies, and someone who is very keen to boss people around without really a lot of the time thinking it through. She's more of a act and then react kind of person, whereas Arya and Sansa both have very different ways of getting to this viewpoint in the story, but both of them have a very similar viewpoint of like, find out the most information before you act on
So you think
what
it's
you're
justified?
doing. Yeah. I think they don't want to follow her because they think that Daenerys is a little more rash than a ruler should be, especially one in war that the stakes are so high when the odds are being evened.
Yeah, but I mean, Arya's one to talk about rash. I mean, I know she's no longer that same person, but you would think she'd have some kind of sympathy.
But also, they want to protect their homeland. It's not just
that too.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's not just a dislike of Daenerys, which there definitely is, but the Northerners are a very proud people. Yeah. And they don't want to be ruled.
Okay. Yeah, that's I see that. Jon tells Arya and Sansa off screen about his parentage.
Bran does.
Yeah, well,
Bran does.
Proxy tells.
This is something that I agree with the general consensus that I think this should have been shown.
See, I completely disagree. I think that would have been a waste of time.
I wanted to see the reactions. I don't think they should have gone over the whole dramatic build up to it again. For sure, that's not necessary. But maybe and this is cherry picking, but I just wanted to see Arya and Sansa's reaction to basically the world as they know it being changed. Because it kind of is.
It feels like an important enough plot point that I think it should have been shown. And it's hard for me to agree with the idea that it's wasting time when it would have been such a simple thing to write and shoot. It's not taking up a huge amount of budget or anything. They're already in the set. See, it feels like something that could have been sort of easily put in there just to sort of confirm.
See, I agree with wanting to see it because I would have liked to see it as well. But given the fact that we already know how long these shows are, I was looking at the time. I'm we really hope they just don't show it because we already know what the gist of it.
I would have rather seen that and then spend more time on that than Bronn's scene. I mean, I like some of the dialogue and that next scene, which is Bronn talking to Tyrion and Jaime. But what's the point of that? I get that they had to close out the fact that they gave him a crossbow, but everyone knew he wasn't going to kill either of them.
See, but I think the reason that they didn't show any of the reaction of Sansa and Arya and why they say, example, spent more time on the Bronn scene is because that wouldn't have moved the story forward.
But neither did the Bronn scene.
The Bronn scene absolutely did. It put the stakes. It told you exactly what's happening with Bronn. As you expected, Bronn wasn't going to just walk up there and kill them indiscriminately. Of course, there's going to be some kind of debate because knowing Tyrion.
But see, the thing with that though was the inconsistency of it all. He was frontline for the Lannisters when fighting against Daenerys. There's no way he just waltzed into Winterfell.
This scene really annoyed me.
Well, I mean, it looks because there's an outside shot. It looks like it's one of the outside, the taverns outside of Winterfell in the town of Winterhome or whatever. Mm-hmm. And as season 1 kind of told us, it's kind of easy for people to just break into Winterfell because that's what the dude who tried to kill Bran did. I mean, albeit he had a fire to help him, but
that much is true. But everyone should be on high alert, right? And his face.
Everyone is probably not on high alert.
Yeah, they just won.
Yeah, they just won. They killed all the dead. They killed all the undead. They killed all the dead, and they killed all the living dead.
I guess I just figured because the battle was so fresh. But I guess it makes sense that they wouldn't be. That makes sense. Still, though, it felt a little bit forced. And I didn't think that it pushed the story forward, having Bronn there. I mean, I think Bronn should have died last season.
Really?
Frankly. I mean, not that I want him to.
I think Bronn should have died in the battle with Daenerys, with the Dothraki, where Jaime tries to kill Drogon.
Realistically, yes.
Because they just don't know what to do with him now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I mean, I agree. I do think it's like at first I was annoyed that he did just suddenly get in there. I do think that's plausible, but I don't like the scene. I don't like the way he just sort of pops up suddenly and then he's never there again. It just feels again, he's just oh, this guy still exists. Let's move on. Let's go. It does feel like they're rushing through things. And I think, I realize that there's a limited amount of time, but I think some things could have been given a little bit more space.
I think they're establishing him as a rogue agent that may or may not come into play within the final in an important scene.
Oh, that crossbow has to be used for something.
Oh yeah, it's Chekhov's gun at this point.
You think he'll pull an Arya and kill Cersei? He better not.
No.
But I mean,
knowing they're Would you be satisfied if Bronn killed Cersei?
I don't know.
I don't think you would.
I don't think I don't think about it only because I don't think it's going to happen at all.
I never thought Arya would kill the Night King.
No?
No, I never wanted it either, and neither did she. Did you guys see the?
Macy Williams didn't like it either. Yeah.
Did you see
Oh
the
yeah, I think you mentioned we
interviews?
mentioned that last week.
Oh, I don't remember that much.
I there was a collection of videos where the actors were sort of hinting at their perceived quality of this season.
I saw those. I don't know if you sent them to me, but I did see them separately
Okay.
from that.
I saw one of them. I saw Kit Harington's.
He said it's going to be disappointing, and they're like, "Really?" He's like, "No, actually, I mean, it'll be epic." At least one of those two words.
But then there was one with Amelia Clark as well.
She wasn't
Amelia
happy.
and Missandei and Grey Worm. And they were all sort of like, ooh, I don't know. Especially Amelia. She does not conceal well.
Oh, those
Probably 'cause
eyebrows
she
tell it
died.
all.
Yeah, I know.
Oh man, I guess we'll see.
But I also do want to point out that the scene with Tyrion and Jaime, the very before Bronn even walks in, they're talking about Jaime and Brienne, and I think the fact that they're talking about how Jaime is speaking with Tyrion in confidence as brothers, they've been shown to do that like Jaime isn't just like trying to have a one night stand like with Brienne, like he's staying with her, like, and he's making that choice for Brienne
Well.
until the next scene when
So-
he finds out that they might not be the winning side.
I
But
thought,
Is that what that
that's
was?
a later scene.
Let's get to that. in a
Yeah,
second.
we'll get
Let's
to
that
that
in a
later.
second.
I do like that Tyrion and Jaime are so obviously related even now.
Mhm.
I like the way they interact with each
Yeah.
other.
That is nice. So in that same scene that we're talking about, Bronn thinks Cersei is dead because of the dragons. But I mean, he doesn't. He was the one that showed that dragons are vulnerable. So how does that line up? You know, because he said, "Oh, I knew that your sister was dead as soon as I saw those. As soon as I took a look at those dragons." But it was his marksmanship with Qyburn's scorpion weapon.
Yeah.
But he was able to demonstrate that they are vulnerable. So if anything,
Now they've got 1,000,000 scorpions.
that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
They are vulnerable, but I mean, but at what cost? Like, because they, in the process of hitting that dragon once, they lost their entire, like, their main column of their army. Like, they lost most of all of their forces.
Yeah.
And that felt like the dragon still had, like a dragon was still a threat.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't feel that way anymore after the scene that we'll get to in a second.
Yeah.
But, you know, I do think it's reasonable for Bronn to think that surely she will win. Because that scene did end with, like, Bronn desperately saving Jaime. So it's not like a sure thing.
Maybe, but that was totally like not enforced.
And he's not necessarily aware of their development
Mhm.
of their scorpion program.
Yeah.
I think that's reasonable.
Okay, so I read this thing, since we're talking about Bronn, and Bronn doesn't really have anywhere to go. I read this thing that the writer said that George R.R. Martin plants characters like seeds, and some grow into something and some don't. And I think that might be fine and well for books, but that should be something that does not translate, or that shouldn't get translated into TV. And I think Bronn was an example of that. And I just wanted to close it out with this, unless you guys wanted to add
I mean, I think
I-
he'll do something.
I think he shouldn't.
I think it was good with books because I think he did it well in the books, and he's done it well in the books because he's had the time to plan out and plot it out. I think when it's done from the show, like they create a show only character and try and give it a plot, it doesn't always go so well.
Yeah, like
Roz the prostitute, like that
Roz
was a
the
pretty
prostitute.
two-dimensional like plot point or like plot line that kind of
Yeah, and they literally
Went along.
moved her from one city to another to
Yeah.
keep her in the show,
yeah
to keep her
it was
relevant.
them titties
They showed a scene of Rhaegal
Flying away.
healing. Yeah, like he was getting better, like
Yeah.
good enough to fly. And well, after that we'll get more to Rhaegal in a bit, but Sansa starts to plot a little bit when Tyrion talks to her. That's when she kind of gets this idea, like maybe I can do something with this information that I was sworn not to reveal, which is of course Jon's parentage. And
Oh,
that's where
you skipped ahead. Where are we now?
We're at Sansa telling Tyrion, but I do think you skipped ahead.
Yeah, you skipped quite a bit ahead.
what did I
Yeah.
skip?
You skip the reuniting of the dream team, Arya and the Hound back together again, and then it's the weakened dragon flying away with the strong dragon leaving
So
Winterfell.
one scene.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Well, okay.
Then
Let's talk about Arya and the Hound, which is kind of like a book title, I think. But
Clegane Bull get hype.
yeah, that's exactly what's gonna happen because like that's the only thing that's gonna close out Clegane's character arc. Arya, though, is she gonna try to kill Cersei? Is that what's gonna happen?
I think so.
Arya's gonna kill the Hound, like with the help of Clegane.
I think.
You mean the Mountain?
Yes, sorry. Arya will kill the Mountain.
Yeah, I think it could be like that. Both the Hound and the Mountain, they both finish each other off.
Sean got a weird image.
And oh god.
Necrophilia.
And
You know he doesn't have a head in the books, right?
Who are you talking about?
I mean, it's not necessarily explicitly stated.
The Mountain may or may not have a head in the books.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, which head are we referring to? I'm not sure.
But I
It's not
think
something I want to visualize.
I think that they're both gonna go down together, and they're going to Sandor is going to be in a very vulnerable position and like dying. The Mountain will probably actually die, or have to have Arya finish the Hound off and finish the Mountain off. I really, kill
Anyway,
them.
moving on
Kill
to
them.
Anyways, Sansa's plotting.
Sansa's plotting, or her
Wait a
revelation.
second. You guys want to talk about this? I need to mention something. That's not Arya's original intention for traveling that way.
No, she still has people on her list.
So who is that though?
Cersei.
Cersei.
I don't want that though. She's already. I mean, maybe originally.
I don't think it'll happen though. I don't think she will kill Cersei, but I think she will at least go down there in attempts to kill Cersei.
Do you think she'll die?
I don't know.
They're not. There's no way they're gonna kill Arya.
I think they could, but I don't know either way.
I think that's very unlikely. I think Arya will survive.
She's like the golden child now.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Now let's talk about Sansa. talking to Tyrion.
Everyone kept saying Sansa can't keep a secret, but Sansa knows exactly what she's doing.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
by definition, she couldn't keep that secret.
Okay, yeah, but it was on purpose that she couldn't keep the secret.
Yeah, it's not like she's just dumb and like, oh, I'm a dumb teenager. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, no, I think she knows exactly what she's doing.
Yeah, she's causing she's dividing the forces, which I thought.
She's the new little finger.
Yeah, which again, that's when I found myself not rooting for Sansa.
And that was also foreshadowed when she's talking to the Hound earlier this episode.
Yeah, that she kind of absorbs
Yeah.
Yeah.
people.
See, I don't know. I felt myself rooting for Sansa there.
Really?
Yeah.
I just don't like the thought of her becoming what she hates.
No, I'm with him. I'm rooting for Sansa now.
I'm not. I'm
It
sorry.
depends on doing bad things for a good reason, but
Well,
that's what I think. That's what this show is all about. Like people doing bad things for reasons that they think are good, but
She's playing the
it's-
game.
Sure,
Yeah.
but it's a terrible timing because she's dividing the one army that is left to stand up to Cersei.
Oh, absolutely, it's terrible timing, but that's the game.
I don't think
Also,
so.
There is no wait and see. There is only play or die.
Yeah. And I think it is theorized. Like they all seem like they're just gonna go waltz down to King's Landing and win. Like that seems to be the general flavor of the mood before they leave.
Well, that's pretty stupid to assume that things are going to go according to plan.
I agree,
Mm-hmm.
and I think part of that is writing, but that seems to be what they're going for. Is that they all sort of assume like this will be fine. That's why Jamie says, "Oh, I can just stay here." But
Well, that's why I found myself not rooting because it's stupid. So
and I think when Littlefinger was caught up in events that he couldn't really control, then that's when he died. And I think Sansa's maybe unaware that she might be in events that are similar.
now, Rhaegal dies.
Had the biggest smile on my face when that happened.
No.
Oh,
I hated that.
Wait.
No, he's
what
right.
are your thoughts about them not showing Sansa telling Tyrion? What do
okay
you
with
think?
that.
Yeah.
The reason I think it's important for them to show Arya and Sansa being informed is because they're so involved with it. I mean, obviously Tyrion is too. There's just something about the fact that they're part of Jon's bloodline that they would have more of a reaction to that information.
I think the reason that I don't think we necessarily need as much the scene of them showing Arya and Sansa is because we get this scene with Sansa that very clearly we understand her motives and like what she's thinking after she knows this information. She's absolutely trying to use this for what she thinks is a personal gain, not only her personal gain, but like the gain of like everybody, like the most amount of people. But I do wish that there was something that showed what Arya thought about all of this, because that wasn't shown at all.
Because she was the one that was closer to Jon, and that would have been better to see. You're right.
Yeah, and then after that we have
Rhaegal
Jon.
died.
No.
Jon's farewell scene with Tormund and Ghost.
The memes are Ghost should have gotten some pets, some hugs.
How do you pet a CGI dog though?
I want to see it even if it's not possible.
I know, me too.
And I just want, Ghost and Jon should just be together all the time, I think.
The implementation of Ghost, I think, has been very strange this season. And it really does feel like they're just trying to squeeze him in at the bottom of the CGI budget.
I do feel like that's a valid point. Like that they just kind of brought him in to show that, hey, he still exists. Okay, we're tying that little storyline off so we can focus on the bigger points.
Yeah.
Because Ghost isn't as important right now.
And then Tormund is just gone for the rest of the show.
Yeah, Tormund's story is pretty healthily wrapped up, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just a feel-good character. I think.
Yeah.
He got his heart broken, but
Yeah, but
it was funny to watch him cry.
with the Hound too. The Hound's like, don't fucking touch me.
Okay, now can we talk about Rhaegal dying?
No, we have to talk about Varys and Tyrion on the boat.
Oh yes,
Because these are the scenes that made me feel like I was watching old Game of Thrones.
absolutely,
Yes.
100%.
I thought the dialogue was super good in these scenes. I love Varys. He just doesn't care. He's just for the people, and he doesn't care if
I can see why you would like that, Yestin. But I just don't like that he's switching teams so willy-nilly.
But
Varys doesn't have a team.
and we've known this all along. We've known from like at season 1 that this is Varys's motives. He's always been on the side of like, fuck the monarchs. I look out for the people, like the little people, and that's.
I'm of the opinion of who is he to say what is good for the little people.
And that he is the person who got there first.
He is an intelligent, well-informed dude.
Yeah.
That's who he is to say.
It's not for anyone to say like who is he to say, or who is anyone to say that they should be king or queen or whatever. It's
but
just whoever has the ability to take the power and hopefully use it for good. But he sees not a lot of people who have the ability to take power use it for good. So he uses his talents of information gathering to know, like at least he knows he can do good for the people.
The same thing he doesn't like about monarchs is what he's kind of embodying by saying that he's above that.
But he wants a good monarch.
Mm-hmm.
Like he believes in Daenerys, which is why he sort of encourages Tyrion to go and advise her.
He doesn't care if there's a monarch or if there's like a council or whatever. He just cares that the people are like there isn't like abuse of power by like the ruling class on the proletariat, I guess you'd call them.
On the serfs.
Yeah.
Okay. I see that. I still don't like either Tyrion or Varys.
I love that Tyrion is in this sort of conflicted role now, and he's being put there by Varys. This stuff I liked.
Yeah, and Tyrion's, I have noticed, when Tyrion's writing is like political stuff, it's gotten better. And I'm glad.
Yeah, no, I like the writing. I like that there were several scenes with these two just in this episode. Like they have the scene in the ship, and then later they have the scene in the throne room. Dragon's Peak, is that what it's called?
Dragonstone.
Dragonstone, yeah. I appreciated this.
For some reason, Varys has been devalued to me. I think he's just been a little bit ineffective. Not in the same way as Tyrion has, which is why he's devalued to me, but just in different ways that I can't articulate right now. So the two of them kind of plotting and stuff seems self-important. And
then
hold up.
oh, now you want to hold up. Now
No,
you
no,
want to hold up.
I just want to finish my thought. That's all. It just seems self-important and out of place within this rushed pacing. That's all.
The plotting scene.
Yeah, I think it's weird in this rushed pacing like season.
I mean, I'm
I
glad it's
can
there at
see.
all.
Yeah,
Like-
I am. Yeah, my one of my biggest gripes, I'd have to say, is the pacing. But I understand again that that's
I think
the
do
nature
it well
of the
or
medium.
don't do it at all. I don't agree with. I'm glad it's there at all,
I think this is done well. I just don't think there's enough of it.
Yeah, I think
which
like,
is part of it not being
Yeah.
done well.
and I think like the scenes are all done well. It's just that like the pacing to create an interesting story, the pacing can't be consistent with certain things, like especially with travel. Like we don't need to know that like we don't need to spend okay, Daenerys leaves on the boat to go back to Dragonstone. We don't need to wait an episode for that. Like
How much time do you think passes between Rhaegal getting shot down at the
Hey,
end?
you just glossed over that.
No, well, I just
you've
want to...
shouted out 2 times.
I know.
How much time do you think passes between him getting shot down at the end of the episode? Because I'm guessing it's like a few weeks, even though it
Yeah,
goes
that-
by very quickly.
That's my thoughts.
Yeah.
And like it probably took like say a week or so, maybe a week and a half for them to get from like Winterfell down to like the coast of Dragonstone where that happened.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that at this point because there's no other time-sensitive events going on.
Yeah, we kind of assume that that's happening, and then like the scenes where like we're seeing Cersei for the first time, like we know that that's happening. Like
I do think it could be done better, though. I think there are ways to signal time passing that aren't really being
Yeah.
done here. It does really feel like we're just scene by scene. Let's go.
yeah,
So, and I do agree. I do think it feels kind of out of place to suddenly have this sort of old style plotting in rooms scene. But I'm glad that it's there. I'd rather be there than not be there.
Okay. Can we finally talk
Okay,
about it?
Rhaegal gets shot
All
down.
right.
I hated it.
I was so happy when it
Why?
happened, but I don't like the scene.
Why were you happy that it happened?
Because I was just like, oh, finally they killed something important.
I think it was done awfully.
Oh, I agree.
So then what?
Okay.
Explain.
It is stupid that they just like, first of all, it's stupid that Dany's just flying in this area when they know the Scorpion exists, at least one of them. She shouldn't be so reckless. Now, of course, you could argue that's her being rash, but still, I think it's almost too much. It's also, it doesn't make any sense that he just gets sniped with 3 bolts like from out of nowhere. They didn't observe the ships or anything, but then Dany flies directly at them and just dozens and dozens of bolts fly at her, and she just turns away at the last minute and doesn't get hit by any. That felt directed poorly and very plot armory. Why didn't they just shoot the dragon that Dany was on when if they had a good view of her, and
Because-
Dany was flying ahead of Rhaegal?
because the other one was weak. we saw that when he was leaving Winterfell.
I don't know. Or why didn't they just have all the ships fire? It felt weird. It didn't feel really justified the way that it was shot.
See, this is another thing where I think that they could have benefited from talking about some kind of tactics, because I'll agree that the Navy, the Greyjoy Navy coming out of nowhere, felt a little weird, because when you think about it, yeah, you should be able to see like a fleet on a fucking dragon. But as for like Daenerys is pretty, as we've seen, can be pretty careless when it comes to like being with and on her dragons.
Yeah, but also the other fleet should have seen the other fleet as well. I do think that.
That is true. But it makes sense to me that I could imagine that Cersei knows that they've won in the north, so she would probably have Euron like have a few scout ships like looking out, like on the watch for Daenerys coming back to Dragonstone, so they can plan this. But
Something that didn't make sense, among many things, is that they were able to have like Yeston said, like 3 perfect shots at Rhaegal on a ship in the water. I mean, that's ridiculous.
And then especially for her to just fly directly at them.
Yeah.
For them to miss every shot.
And then they reload super quickly because then they're able to immediately fire at the ships. I think that's also kind of silly. And I hated seeing Euron I mean, he's so. I've seen him being called horny Jack Sparrow, and I think that's pretty true because he's just ridiculous as a character. I don't know if I ever liked him in the past. Maybe I did, but that's long gone.
I love the way he is portrayed. I think there's a lot of actors that they choose that are vastly different from their descriptions in the book, but I think that they sell the character so well that you don't even care.
Is he one of them?
And I think for one of them, he is one of them for me.
I don't like him. He's too one-dimensional.
Really?
I mean, his only motivation being he wants to fuck the queen.
See, and to be honest, I could see some of that be because that he was introduced later in the books, and so he doesn't have a lot of chapters of characterization other than like his earlier motives from like I think what would be around like season 5 or whatnot.
I think the reason I liked him getting shot down so much was because everyone who had just beat the Night King had this air of overconfidence to them, and I like that they just immediately got rid of that.
I can see that too. Like they're probably walking all in high and mighty. Like we just killed the White Walkers. What are you gonna do to us? And that's what you're gonna do to us. Yeah.
I dislike that because from the very beginning of the Scorpion being introduced, it should not have been able to pierce through a dragon scale.
Why not?
You of all people should know, right? Like it's those kinds of things should just kind of bounce off of dragon scales.
Well, I mean,
there was a thing about getting shot through an eye for a dragon, right? That was the only way to kill him.
Well, I mean, it's been they've had
been a few hundred years, right, since the last.
Yeah, and they've talked about how like dragons had been felon in the past. And but by like non I'm not sure if that
felon
fell or have fallen.
Felled?
I don't know. Felled. They have been felled.
Man, I don't know. Anyway,
Grammar. Fewer. In the books, it does talk, or at least mentions how dragons have been killed by like non-super-powered things before. But it doesn't seem like George R. R. Martin's dragons, in this sense at least, are invulnerable. It looks like they have a little bit more plating because you can't just use a regular bow and arrow to shoot them, but I mean it's not like they're iron plating or whatever on them.
I get that, but who was the original Targaryens that conquered all 7 kingdoms? There were 3 of them.
Yeah,
right? They conquered with 3 dragons, and it's not like back then because they haven't really evolved their weaponry that much.
Correct.
It's not like they wouldn't have been able to shoot something of that caliber, something like that to a dragon. It just makes it really implausible that they're able to get rid of a dragon this easily, and we're still expected to believe that they were ever mighty enough to conquer the 7 kingdoms.
Well, to be fair, when he went and conquered the 7 kingdoms 300 years ago, they were 7 distinct different kingdoms all divided with their powers were all divided, so essentially like he didn't have to fight all 7 kingdoms at once, or like the combined wealth of having that many people all at once. He just had to like, okay, he defeated the people in the Riverlands, now he's defeated the people in the Westerlands and done all that. Okay, the North have bowed to him. He's pretty much conquered everything but Dorne, so he calls it a day.
Okay, but that wouldn't have happened overnight, and they would.
No.
And some of the other kingdoms would have gotten word of this happening and should have been able to prepare.
Yes, and they did, and they got defeated because dragons.
I don't think it is unreasonable to think that the technology has evolved. Because you mentioned that, well, technology hasn't really evolved, and I don't think that's necessarily the case. Like, sure, they're still using swords and bows and stuff, but I do think that, first of all, with this large collection of knowledge and sort of industry in King's Landing, I think it's reasonable that something like this could have been developed when you have a sort of localized center of economy like this.
Which was created after the fact by the person with 3 dragons 300 years ago.
And so now that you have that, you're able to develop the technology that can deal with this threat.
This is not new technology. This is just a giant crossbow.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, they didn't really have before then. They didn't have the centralized production. They didn't have any kind of like because they're able to use, or Cersei is able to use the resources of the all seven kingdom, or all the kingdoms that were loyal to her at the time, which was a good chunk of most of the seven kingdoms, and she is able to use that wealth and power to create all these weapons of war, these scorpions and whatnot.
I think it was totally crap that Rhaegal died after having survived all that stuff. And I get that this is Game of Thrones where things can die out of nowhere, but and you know, characters can die unceremoniously. But this was unbelievable to me.
I just wanted to say I would think that this is probably, unless I don't know if you guys can think of any more, but I would say this is probably one of the most unceremonious deaths in Game of Thrones. This dragon,
and most unbelievable deaths to me. I mean, the accuracy, the kind of convenience that no one saw the stinking ships.
No, I agree. I don't like this scene, but I'm fine with the crossbow existing in concept. Like, I don't like the way that they're being used. I don't like that they just have a ton of them now. I think it would be more interesting if there was like something that they could produce in a limited quantity. And I don't like the way this scene plays out and with the accuracy and the ships and everything. But I don't have a problem with the crossbow itself.
I don't have a problem with Rhaegal dying. I have a problem with how they did it. And I honestly thought you guys would be more on board with that. Like, do you guys agree? Is that what you're saying?
Well, you're attacking the concept of them being able to kill a dragon in the first place, which I don't see a problem with.
I think they shouldn't be able to kill it so easily. Right now, they seem so expendable.
If they can hit the dragon, then I think it makes sense. I think it is reasonable for the technology like that to be developed. I don't think they should have been able to hit the dragon from such a distance, and I don't think the scene was done well. But conceptually, I don't have a problem with this type of technology being used in this way.
And I could understand them having like the element of surprise on their hand, because they very clearly caught them while they're completely off guard. Whether or not they should or shouldn't have, because they're on dragons, is another matter. But they caught them off guard. They probably had time to aim and like, okay, that one's flying a little slower. It's a little injured. Aim for that one, and like they're not looking, so they point aim. They get it, and then you see Daenerys come in and like she sees her kid die, so she like goes in typical Daenerys fashion, not thinking about anything, only emotionally reacting. She just like starts charging at him, like thinking she's going to like end the war now and like blast the navy, and then she realizes, wait, that's freaking stupid. I shouldn't do that. And then she kind of pulls out at the last second.
Shooting on a moving ship, though.
I mean, they looked like they weren't moving too fast.
I mean, not even moving, but just there's waves.
The problem is that their shots are so inconsistent, because when it's her, she has her plot armor. If they were always going to be that accurate, then fine, but that's not the case. And I think that a better way to do the scene would have been to have them approach on horses so that they can have the crossbows hidden within King's Landing. And if she flies a little too close, then he gets taken out. That way you don't have the problem with the ships being super obvious and easy to notice, because you could argue that the crossbows were hidden among the buildings or something like that. And that would also eliminate the problem with people criticizing the aiming on the ship thing.
I think the crossbows were stupid to begin with. Honestly, I hate that's how they're killing the dragons.
See, again, I don't have a problem with the crossbow. In fact, I did consider like, oh, this makes sense. She can't just take over now because technology has evolved.
It hasn't evolved much, but it has evolved.
And this is something that's depicted over and over and again in these types of shows, is what happens to fantasy elements when industry moves on.
I just never got the industry part of this ever.
It's not necessarily like huge industry, but just the fact that when you have such a large amount of people in one place, you have the ability to have economies of scale that you weren't able to have when most of Westeros, which is based on medieval Europe, which was a cottage-based industry, meaning they made most products in their own homes, rather than like people living in places and going to a certain place to make that product, say King's Landing. And that kind of that is historically is what made a lot of things cheaper and a lot of things easier for humans to live in, like our world. So it's not completely foreign to imagine that when a problem or a vacancy arises or a need arises, that they would fill it. Because like you notice, or it shows like when dragons died out, they started making wildfire to keep their power projection high.
Sure.
And then so now that they have a strong center, they have these dragons that they need to deal with. So it makes sense that they would experiment and try to find something that can kill these dragons, like that has a better chance of just them, like hopefully trying to hit a dragon in the eye or something, like hopefully making mistake or something.
The dragons were so built up, that's my problem with it. My opinion's not going to change on this. I don't think it's possible.
Well, then
It's very interesting.
Then we can talk about the next scene where with Cersei and Urine Greyjoy.
Oh, that reaction was more to them somehow capturing Missandei and caring about her. That seemed a little
I think
far-fetched.
Possibly it could be Grey Worm was the one that caused her to be caught, because he told her to get on like the skiff to get off the boat. And so she's probably in this tiny ass boat while everybody else is being scattered and swimming away. So she's probably like stuck in the water, just like moving really slow by the time that the big boats come along and they can just scoop her up.
I gotta hand it to you.
Why didn't they get Tyrion, who was unconscious?
I don't know.
He's
That's a
floating
very
in the
good
water.
question. Plot armor. That we can call that one plot armor.
I do like that he was knocked unconscious. It reminded me of the good old days.
Yeah, it reminded me of the ending of the one where Jorah gets grayscale on their way to Daenerys.
Mhm.
Where I thought the show was going to end there. I didn't realize how what time we had in the show, and I thought it was going to end there when the cut
it was
to
a
black.
very slow episode.
Yeah.
Anyway, so now that Arturo is not the host anymore because he's upset about crossbows.
I'm not upset about
What?
crossbows. I'm just looking at this thing right here.
Taking down a dragon with a mounted crossbow. Too good for you? Like, is that too
It's
good
not
for
good
Tolkien?
enough. Not good enough.
Too good for Tolkien. Yeah.
Why copy it then?
Cersei doesn't care about the people. She is only using them so that if Dany wants to get to her, she has to burn them all alive, which Dany will try to do, and she will be stopped somehow, hopefully. Maybe not.
See, I think that's what's going to happen. I think she's not going to be stopped, and she's going to burn them to get to Cersei. And I think that is what is going to cause people to turn against her.
I am telling
specifically
you.
Jon.
I am telling you. Jon will stab her in the back on the Iron Throne. She'll kill everyone. I know it can't happen. I think it would be interesting if she really just did fly in, dodging bolts, and kill a bunch of people before Jon got there. That's not going to happen because that was in the preview. Like, he's already there. But she's going to kill a bunch of people, and then she's just going to continue trying to lead, and everyone's going to turn on her, and Jon's going to stab her in the back because she's going to say, I don't have time for your petty, caring about people, because now at that point she's gone mad, and she turns around, and Jon takes the opportunity. And then, Jaime comes up and pats him on the back. He's like, you're part of an exclusive club now.
Your predictions have been very specific and also very wrong this whole time. So I don't know. Just talk to place on that.
What do we think about Cersei telling Euron that the baby's his?
Well, later Tyrion points out that the baby has existed before that. So he better question that.
I'm glad other people noticed that, because that was...
He's not the smartest character, but that shouldn't fly past him. I think that should cause some sort of disturbance on Cersei's side. That way you have the collapse of Daenerys' side and Cersei's side at the same time.
I like that idea.
Well, to pull a Shawn.
Yeah. I'd love to hear you pulling me. Okay, just talk.
Jesus. The innuendos in this episode.
Who's to say that Qyburn didn't tell Tyrion when they were talking? I mean, as far as Euron's viewpoint, maybe that's how Tyrion knew.
So wait,
Maybe that's why
what would Qyburn tell Tyrion?
that
Yeah,
Cersei's
she's
pregnant.
But Oh, I see. So Euron could just assume that Qyburn told Tyrion. That
Yeah.
feels like a weird thing
Absolutely.
that Qyburn would say.
But it's
Their family.
Maybe Cersei will use it to justify that. Like maybe she'll use that as an excuse, but I don't think that would be the initial perception.
no. But again, just pulling the Shawn.
How is that pulling a Shawn?
Yeah.
Because you've been giving reasons for things that maybe we don't agree with.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Like throughout the whole episode.
Points that we might not have thought about, yeah.
That's giving yourself too much credit, Shawn.
Along with talking about people having longer conversations about battle tactics, I think that Tyrion and Qyburn's conversation could have been a little bit more interesting.
That's a little later. Do we want to save that?
That was
the Tyrion Qyburn. No, we missed the Daenerys Varys.
We
scene
did, yes.
And the Varys Tyrion scene number 2.
They're talking about whether Daenerys is fit to rule and the likelihood of Jon Snow taking over.
And the scene where Jaime.
Oh, we did skip over that.
Yeah.
Oh, I did want to
like
talk about
3
that.
scenes.
It felt super weird to me that Jaime was staying. I thought they can't keep him here. This doesn't make any sense.
I want to go back to the scene where Varys pretty much openly tells her, "Hey, this is
yes.
this is a wrong thing to do," and like
attacking the capital.
Yeah, but this is like him like openly like being honest with her, like trying to prove his loyalty via his honesty towards her. And I think she does see that, and I think she's able to appreciate her advisor's advice on this matter of like at least like trying to make peace before you kill everybody.
I didn't think they should have tried to make peace, because just knowing who they're dealing with, being Cersei, and Tyrion suggesting that, like, way to beat a dead horse.
Well, no, Tyrion is suggesting that like they let the people of King's Landing know that Cersei is their only target, so that and like they don't want to kill anyone but Cersei. And that is supposed to like have the people of King's Landing turn against.
But I mean, of course, Cersei is gonna get to them first.
Well, obviously, like she has that advantage. That's like they're like chess moves countering each other out. Like you wouldn't even do them because you know your partner at like a certain level of chess. I imagine like you know your partner is just going to know how to counter that immediately. So it's just something like you don't even try to do.
That's what felt a little childish and unthought about Tyrion's plan. Is that, I mean, why wouldn't Cersei try to get the citizens on her side? Because
he still wants to do it just because it's the good thing to do. And like he's trying to at least take a little bit of pages from Varys's book and try not to have everybody in King's Landing murdered by dragonfire.
So when did Tyrion start to become this middle, like, gray ground?
I think when Sansa told him that there's another option.
I think when
when
Dany burnt up the Tarly guys.
Yeah.
I think at that point he was already starting to question the validity of her as a leader, and now he's got options.
Yeah.
Well,
I think there's been multiple points where he has questioned her sanity, or at least her rashness of decision.
And he's constantly been having to defend the nature of her rule to other people who have grilled him on it.
I'm not saying when he started questioning Dany, because he can question all he wants, but the way in which he offers solutions have been very gray. And that doesn't mean that he questions or not Daenerys, but he's just been such a neutral force lately. And that didn't used to be him. He was the guy that came up with the wildfire plan and on the boat, you know? So I'm just wondering, when did he change that aspect of his character?
I think he realizes that Daenerys wants to change the game, not just like be a new Mad King or be a new Queen Cersei or be a new Queen Daenerys the First or whatever. She wants to just completely change the way the system is working, and I think that's why Tyrion is still clinging on to some hope for her, because she wants to at least try to end, I guess, tyranny.
She's
But
gonna break the wheel.
but I think that in her effort to do that, she's gonna be just as bad as those
that came before.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, now he's conflicted about her ruling, so
Mhm.
it does make sense that his... And, you know, when he tried to play a more active role, like in Marine with the slavers, like that failed until she came and saved everyone. So I feel like his traditional tactics haven't been working in his new position. I also feel like part of that is just, you know, an inability to maybe write for the character. But I do think that some of it is justified in the events that he's experienced.
And talking about the scene where Varys and Tyrion once again are discussing, I want to talk about a little bit about the a directing choice that I noticed in this scene, but on my rewatch, I noticed a lot more. In these scenes, especially these indoor scenes, these indoor dialogue scenes where these characters are talking to each other and just talking about the way these characters interact each other. Like, I noticed that in these scenes, when a character is facing decision or is unsure about a decision, lighting only covers half of their face. And you can see this from the very beginning when it's like in the very opening feast scene in the Winterfell Hall, and like the darker the shadows are, it seems like the bigger or like the more that decision is weighing on them. And like if you look at some of the screen caps from the Tyrion and Varys scenes, like the one where on the boat, and especially this one where they're talking more about like directly treason, the shadows on their faces are so dark, and like when the point comes that Varys like openly talks about treason and not caring about Daenerys and only the people,
He's
the
got
light,
no fire.
yeah, there's no light on his face. Like
He's
obviously-
abandoned Daenerys.
yeah, it's kind of like that, the flickering light. And I think there's a point where there is a scene where I noticed that Tyrion's shadow was like doing a little bit of that too. Like he was kind of questioning a bit. So I noticed that. I don't know if it was an intentional thing.
It's a cool thing to add to it, though.
Yeah.
It gives
yeah.
more depth to it. I want to say that they did it on purpose.
Yeah.
I just don't know anymore.
Are the curtains blue for a reason?
But I mean, that seems like something at a director. I think this one was directed by Nutter. Was his last name?
Yeah. Well, what did he do?
He was
Before.
the director. I don't know. I believe what I was told is that they brought in like some of the best directors from previous seasons to do this final season. So those that they felt like did the best job of like capturing the Game of Thrones show.
I've always been
film.
interested in having like an edit of the show that only followed single characters. So like if you just had a whole timeline of Tyrion, every Tyrion scene. And I think if you did that, you would be able to more effectively notice like subtle directing things like that, like the way they handle the lighting on a certain character or the way they handle the way that they're framed. Because I'm sure that is something that exists. It's just when you're watching the show all the way through and it's jumping between different scenes, it's harder to notice things like that.
There's one more scene we got to talk about.
Yeah, the Jamie and then the King's Landing scene.
Jamie leaves Brienne, and people were very annoyed, and I didn't really understand the annoyance at this.
I thought he was betraying his character development.
I think that he was doing what people do.
This is a part of the episode I'm okay with. I think that it makes sense for him to sort of be shuddered by the idea that Cersei might actually win and to start questioning his deeds.
Yeah.
Even though it seems like he's moved on from them, he hasn't really.
No. I did not get that he thought Cersei was going to win. Because right before that, Sansa says, I was really looking forward to
seeing or being
rope.
there for death, for Cersei's death or something.
But it looks like Dany's gonna beat me to there, or whatever she said.
Yeah,
I didn't really
Or
understand that line either.
She said it looks like I won't be there to see it, which
No, I think she says something like, it looks like I won't get the chance, which I interpreted as Cersei might win, so I won't be able, like, I'll die before.
No way
she's dead.
Sansa would say something like that. So cool.
This line, it weirded me out, and it didn't seem to fit. And I did think it was weird. I don't think it fit with this scene. I was very confused.
See, but I also think that we don't know enough. Because his leaving, the act of him leaving, seemed a little vague. It didn't necessarily explicitly say that he was going for Cersei, like to go on her side, but it didn't necessarily explicitly say that he was going to kill Cersei or like trying to stop her.
There's two ways you could interpret this, right? He was saying the things that he said to Brienne so that she doesn't follow, or he really meant them.
Yeah, and he said his words were like, Cersei's a hateful person, and so am I. Well, that could be viewed as like, oh, I have hate for Cersei. Like I'm full of hate, but as much as Cersei is, so I got to end this kind of thing. But it sounded, I do agree, it sounded like he could have been just saying that to make sure he's not followed by Brienne, who knows that she would try and come and stop him or try and help him, and he doesn't want to hurt her. Assuming that that's his true intentions, and like that he's still a pretty decent guy.
Sort of the other way that Yeston interpreted was that, tell me if I'm wrong. Yeah, that he's gonna go to Cersei because she's gonna win, because and he's going there to just be with her and his baby.
I didn't. No, I never thought he was gonna go join her. Like I don't think that's what he's gonna do.
But then the winning thing,
one of his motives, it could have just been like, Cersei probably has a little bit better chance of winning. I kind of need to save my skin and go back to her because I only said I was going to go fight the living and then just hope she doesn't find out I slept with another person.
See, to me, this scene felt unclear.
Yeah.
And maybe it was intentionally so. I did not interpret it as he is going back to Cersei. I interpreted it as he knows how much of a threat she is, so he wants to go like lend his services.
Yeah.
Like he realizes that his role in this is not over.
Yeah, I think it could be both. One of them.
Which one did you think it was? Like if you had to lean one way.
If I had to lean one way, I don't know, because I think because everything that like obviously everything we know about like traditional like stories and like fantasy arcs tells you that Jaime's going down there to fulfill the prophecy and kill her, but he could be going down there and like he didn't actually change and he's still pretty shitty, but like he's just trying to do whatever he's trying to do to save himself and whatever he thinks could work out for him the best. Not necessarily thinking about what's right, just because to me it seems like his character has always been doing what's right when it's good and convenient for him and when he knows that it's the absolute right thing to do. But I think when there's conflict for him, that he can waver depending on the source of the conflict. And obviously Cersei has been his one weakness from the very beginning, and so I think that weakness is the source of the uncertainty. Like we don't know if he's going to defeat that weakness or if he's giving into the weakness, you know.
See, and I could understand why people were upset about it if that is the interpretation, that he is totally turning back around, because I would consider that a betrayal of his character. That's just not how I thought of it. Like I thought that would be so absurd. Like, because I mean I agree, but I think that coming up to defend the living and fight the walkers was not in his best interest at all. So I do feel like that is his character progression, and if he was to totally turn around on that doesn't make any sense to me.
And that's how I interpreted it, that he was turning around on it.
See, I just thought that was so absurd. There's no way that would happen.
The way that he led up to it, to him leaving, what he was telling Brienne. Again, yeah, maybe that could have been so that she doesn't follow, but then why not just be honest with her?
See, I don't know. I almost thought of it like he has accepted that maybe he's not really a good person, but he wants to do something good, so he's just gonna go on like a suicide run to try to kill her. I don't know.
I there's a point where I was thinking that his dialogue in that scene could have been like directed not only at Brienne but like the people watching for him and kind of rooting for him, because he's like, you really think I'm a good guy? Like, I pushed a kid out a window. I like killed people for my sister and whatnot, and we're all just the same. There's no like good people.
What he was saying though about, I did all this just to get back to Cersei.
Mm-hmm.
And then he leaves. I thought that was kind of telling. Maybe it's too on the nose, maybe, but
see, I thought it was telling that his very last words was hate. With the line that Cersei is spiteful, so am I. That's the line that kind of leads me to think that like it could be either one. Like, he's spiteful towards her. He's spiteful in the sense that
he's good with her.
Yeah, like that he's also as spiteful with Cersei, spiteful as Cersei is.
I mean, he's also got to consider his kid, though.
Yeah, that too, and I think that's part of the reason that he's going down there. I think he does want to try and save Cersei, even though that he knows that she's probably not going to
turn around.
Yeah,
I think that's super interesting, because I didn't even consider that interpretation. I almost maybe thought of it. Another alternative would be that like he thinks he's done too much in his past to like have a happy ending, so he's going to go throw himself into the fire and try to accomplish one more good thing. I don't know. Because I don't think he thinks Cersei can be saved in any way. Like, I think he knows her too well.
Yeah, but his baby.
Yeah.
That might override it.
his baby.
There was this one thing that I guess we kind of glossed over before we close out and go to Off the Throne.
Well, the last scene.
What is the last scene? I thought that was it.
In front of King's Landing.
Oh, my
Sunday.
goodness. Yeah.
Sunday.
There's a lot of scenes.
I know. Honestly, after Rhaegal died, because I was doing a rewatch. When I got to the rewatch part where I was making notes and then Rhaegal died, I was like, that's so ridiculous, and it turned it off. So anything after Rhaegal, I'm just kind of like not really sure about. So let's go to the last scene of the whole thing, which I guess
Why doesn't Cersei just shoot them all right there?
Because it's a parlay. Like,
She's
She doesn't
not
care.
a respectable person.
I mean, but think about it. Her biggest weakness is her arrogance, and you know that there is no way she would just like unceremoniously shoot her enemies. She would want to torture, like you especially
Rhaegal writes from the grave.
like you especially see. Well, I mean, like her personal enemies, like
Dany.
Daenerys or Tyrion. Like, you saw what she did with the Sand Snake lady, whose name I don't care to remember.
Yeah, that's a dark part of Game of Thrones.
But like you saw what she did with her, like after like poisoning her daughter. Like she locked her in the throat. Like, you saw what she did with Septa Unella, her keeper at the Sept when she was a prisoner.
And even right then and there with Missandei.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like she killed her in front of all her friends.
Mm-hmm. She wants to cause the most like emotional pain to her enemies before she kills them, and that's, I think, her biggest flaw. Like, she very well could have like just bam, like order her archers to kill Daenerys and Tyrion right there, but
Her redeeming quality was supposed to be that her kid surpasses everything for her, right?
her love for her children.
And I mean, that should have told her, kill everyone here and now, you know, because that's going to give us the best chance of survival. But maybe it's not her redeeming quality. Maybe that will be her demise.
Mm-hmm.
And Grey Worm, I mean, that's a meme now. His face after Missandei was killed. Just turning away from it. I think it was that scene that told me Daenerys is going to go crazy Targaryen.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can see that because like all like her kids, two out of three of her kids are dead. or
John's-
maybe
yeah.
technically 3 out of 4. And yeah, Missandei, Jorah,
Yeah.
like all her close people. Then she's getting betrayed. I mean, maybe, we don't know yet, by her advisors, and she's losing praise of the people, I guess, if you want to call it that. So yeah, maybe she will go full Targaryen. She has one dragon. She has the means to do it
Yeah.
still. And
With that amount of plot armor, yeah.
yeah.
She could just fly right over King's Landing. No problem.
Who has the biggest
I mean-
plot armor, Cersei or?
I liked
Danny.
the idea that was essentially just a diagram of Drogon flying
Yes.
higher
With a rock.
Yeah, with a rock
Just dropping it, yeah.
higher than they can shoot. And just-
I don't think he could effectively carry a rock, though.
yeah. See, and that was another thing I was thinking, like, about the boat scene. Like, theoretically, unless those scorpions can swivel really fast, Daenerys could have just like flown behind the boats and just lit them on fire there.
Yeah.
Because like otherwise, then they'd have to either shoot through their sails or like there's no way the boats can maneuver that fast.
You are a very conflicted person.
I mean,
Also, gravity is a thing. They were pretty high up, shooting upwards. That's
well,
if anything, that should have not pierced that much.
With the distance and the amount that a ballista, the advantage that a ballista has over like
Gravity.
yeah.
I don't think
I'm sure it would do enough damage to kill him. I mean,
so you are conflicted.
what?
Just you have argued many sides of these
Oh
arguments.
yeah. I mean, my arguments are mostly with
You're Varys.
yeah.
No allegiance. No, but I mean,
Yeah.
you know, she doesn't know the way the crossbows work.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. We can. That does upset me. So let's like not talk about that. Let's get a little bit into predictions. Then we'll do Off the Throne and close this out. So Bran warging or not?
Bran's out. I don't think Bran's going to be playing anymore.
Oh, and Tyrion talking to Bran, which I guess also involves Bran.
Oh, Bran.
Bran. Yeah.
Bran.
So nothing more from Bran. He's just gonna stay in the north and vegetate.
That's my theory.
Yeah, I don't think. I think we'll see something of him in the last episode. Kind of
Like Ice and Fire.
maybe. I don't know, but I don't know.
So who's not gonna play a role in this anymore?
Obviously Tormund and Ghost.
Yeah.
Um,
Rhaegal.
other than the dead people, those are obvious. I don't really know, but
I told
think
you, if you criticize my predictions for being too accurate and always wrong, but what if one of these super
You mean
accurate,
too specific?
accuracy and predictability? Anyway, but what if one of these specific ones ends up being totally right? Then I'm a god. I'm telling you, Jon will kill Daenerys at the Iron Throne by stabbing her in the back, just like Jamie did, or Jamie will. Oof.
Oh, pick one.
See,
John.
I agree, but I don't think he'll do it in the back. That's my only disagreement with you on that one.
No, because I think it would be good for
For him to betray his character.
and also for her to not directly see it coming. I think that would be more interesting. Like, she's so overconfident. She has no fear about turning her back. But then she realizes it's a mistake as she dies slowly.
I think it'll be like the well, not in the same circumstances, but like the same manner of like Roose Bolton killing Ramsay killing Roose Bolton, his father.
Oh, hugging and stuff.
Yeah.
That is in the back, or no? Isn't?
No, that was in the front. He was like he came up and he like happy having a son day, Dad, and then like, oh, you're dead now.
Gotcha. Okay. So I mean that was the only thing I was gonna ask for predictions is the thing about Bran, warging, nothing.
I wish, but I don't think so.
Okay, cool. Well, I mean, there's gonna be a battle next episode.
Maybe we'll see. The thing that I like the most is kind of not knowing where everything's going, but still having lots and lots of things to base hypotheses off of.
I mean, I'm interested to see where they take it. I'm not as invested in the same way I used to be, which is unfortunate.
I think it was. I obviously think it was better than the last one.
Than the last episode.
Yeah, and I think it's. I think it's one of the better ones. I think it's probably one of the best so far of this season.
Off the Throne.
Off the throne.
Okay, so in the interest of not just complaining about episode 3, I want to recommend a video called "Let's Rewrite the Battle of Winterfell." So this is like a 40-minute video that goes through. I mean, it's exactly what it sounds like. It presents a situation in which all the same characters die so that you still have all the characters to do with the rest of the season, and it just rewrites the battle. It places some character deaths differently. So for example, he wants to kill Jorah when he charges into the White Walkers, which would make sense and would also establish that plot armor isn't that much of a thing, whereas it takes a lot of characters die sort of in clusters in that episode. So just things like that, but also rewriting the way the dragons are handled so that that's a little bit more believable, rewriting the way the Night King is killed. I think he has him being killed by Jon, but like I said, Jon with the help of Arya and Theon, so that Theon's death doesn't feel as pointless, stuff like that. And it really does, at least from just watching this once, it does, in my opinion, make a more cohesive and more satisfying episode that still accomplishes all the basic stuff, but is done in a more believable way. And this is by a channel called Hello Future Me.
All right. We said we were going to link the video by Mahler. And I think it is, it is MAU, capital L-ER. Okay. But after I watched that video, I got to see this video by a channel called The Critical Drinker. It's not as ragey as the Mahler video, which I enjoyed.
Mahler's videos are very dramatic.
Yeah, I liked it. It was very intense.
You gotta watch his Dark Souls 2 coverage. It's like 10 hours.
I don't know if I'm up for that.
It's amazing.
But this video is called "The Long Night: How Game of Thrones Killed 8 Years of Character Development," and this guy does kind of go. It's not as long as the. It's a little bit more digestible than 37 minutes of raging. This one's only 12 minutes, but it goes deep into the Long Night battle and that episode as a whole. But he's doing it from a perspective of a drinking critic.
So I'm going to recommend The Lands of Ice and Fire, which is just a big old book full of large, high-quality poster-style maps of the Game of Thrones world. And they have really nice ones of like Essos and just Westeros, and they've got really detailed ones of like the city layout of King's Landing. They have a really detailed one of the city layout of Bravos. And they have all these really fancy maps. And if you like fantasy maps like I do, and making them and looking at them and that kind of stuff, then this is probably right up your alley.
Sweet.
And if you want, like, they're the perfect size and style to be like hung up on your wall as posters and that kind of thing.
Do you have any?
I have them. I have not hung them up. I keep it in like the little book thing it comes in.
Nice, Sean.
Because they all like fold up and like fit into the book.
Okay.
It's like $30, I imagine, with shipping and handling. All that. Find it online.
There's the ad for the episode.
Yeah.
Sean, I gotta ask because I'm curious. I won't drag this out too much longer, but I gotta ask, how did you feel about this this conversation? Because it felt like there was kind of almost at some points it felt 2 versus 1. I felt personally attacked on the Rhaegal scene, but besides that,
I think it went pretty well because like. It's not like, because you two both disagree. You two both said you didn't like the episode, and I said I really liked it. I thought like at that point that this is gonna be like a 2-on-1 against me, but I was surprised that like it seemed to be a 2-on-1, but the 2s and 1s seemed to be like constantly
they
changing.
flopped a lot. Yeah,
because like we all had different points to make.
I thought it was very effective.
Mm-hmm.
I felt attacked by Rhaegal.
I think you just don't like the idea of a crossbow being used to kill the dragons.
It's too simple.
Yeah, too man-made, maybe.
Yeah, I mean,
Not fantastical enough.
I think I preferred like the Night King shooting a stupid fucking magical spear.
Yeah.
Because then at least they used the dead dragon. Whatever. I'm done. Okay, we can close this out.